Sure, thanks. Ioana, how is it at Molson course?
So, effective 12th of March, we started a conversation with people on a daily basis via Microsoft Forms. So we are asking them how they are and what do they need. And this was very helpful to set up the IT support, the logistical support, but also to get a sense check of how they feel. Because they are okay to report this on a daily basis. This is still continuing, and we report back to organization again on a daily basis. So this is our commitment of continuous conversation with them. This was our practice before, and it is working well. Actually, in the first days of a little bit of panic, this worked like a safety net to know that their colleagues are home, nobody is sick, they continue to work, and they get news for entire company. Then we had already planned for March HR connects or skip level meetings with all the teams. So I have 3 HR BPs with this already in the agenda. Initial temptation was to postpone, but then we covered everybody during this month with the skip level meetings. So around 70 meetings happened during this month, and we have a report out on how they feel. So they had a space to talk with HR about pretty much everything like usually. And it was an addition called COVID. So how they feel about this new stuff. So we have their thoughts and we responded to them. We also kept our town hall. It was a little bit challenging and the first for all to do town hall via Webex, via Teams, but it worked well. 400 plus participants. Q&A was submitted before, so we actually responded to all their concerns. In terms of learning, it was funny because again, the initial temptation is to postpone, but we said, come on, we can do this, we can do this. So we have an onboarding program of 3 days. So as you imagine, multiple speakers from all departments, and we already delivered 2. A little bit of stretch in delivering some workshops, because some are workshops on diversity and inclusion. So a little bit of stretch in delivering workshops, but it's still doable. This meant a lot of, meant additional work for some people delivering all these interventions. But it was very well received from the organization as a sense of normality during all this madness. Yeah, so some meetings are still to be there. Learning pill delivered once per week is giving them visibility on support, webinars, trainings for this particular period. And more than this, if I'm reflecting back on the month, it was a wonderful test for resilience and kindness for this team. And yeah, I would say on top of HR support, yeah, because we were in the front line, and leadership support, the leadership team is meeting every day to address action planning coming from people. Each evening, 6:30, we revise action plan, yes. So on top of this, the major support came from colleagues. So we had people delivering karate lessons or how to cook your own bread lessons, which was pretty funny this time.
How this typically starts, I was just wondering. So for example, is it starting with that someone proactively comes up that, look, I have a good bread recipe, I want to put that online, or someone says, you know, I know karate, I can do this, or you guys initiated some kind of employee program that if anyone has anything, please share?
No, this piece was not corporate driven, to call it like this. So we reinforced the practice of check-in. We sent some materials that in remote work you need to pay extra attention to do your check-in. Managers took it like religiously and they book it in calendars, and check-in turned from work to you have a cat, you have a dog, like in other companies, I'm sure. And then they migrated to, I have just done my bread, please teach us. So we suddenly started to notice meetings on various topics. And some of them I found by accident and I just joined, and they are so really fun. I mean,
Okay. That's great to hear. And then, as I'm listening to both of you sharing these methods, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I sense is that there's no significant cost element in this. So basically, purchasing those virtual platforms. And I think many times what small companies say that, yeah, you know, the big companies, they have money for that. But actually, most of the things are coming from the employee level. Most of the things are community-driven things with some minimum level of investment going on. I would like to ask Mihaela and Vistiana your opinions, guys. Who do you think, or which category or which group of employees are the most at risk ones, if we can say like this? Who are the most affected? I am hearing about people, you know, the ones who are single. Obviously, typically young and single people can feel really alone during this period. On the other hand, I also hear about employees who have small kids, and when I'm speaking about small kids, there are a certain age group where it's really difficult to manage the kids' activity during the day, of course, as we don't have schools. Or sometimes I hear that they are the older generations who are not really digital literate, and they are not really comfortable with using all these remote working video applications. What are your thoughts on this? Either of you. Mihaela, let's say, or Vistiana, as you already started to smile, please.
I think the first category is the one who didn't manage to deal with the anxiety before. Also, dealing with the anxiety gives you the power upon any kind of change. So there are challenges, there are difficult issues, but if you already acquired this ability to chill yourself, to found the ways to deal with what happens inside, then you can you know, you are like an elastic. You can stretch and come back and stretch and come back, and then you can play with it for a long time. It doesn't break. But if you just only stretch it, at last it breaks. So if you didn't find these ways, these methods to bring this elastic back, then you are in danger, no matter what kind of from what category you take part. And well, there are also people who are afraid to be unemployed. They didn't get a stable place in that company, so they are not very firmly positioned there, and they are afraid for their life, for their survival. In this period, nobody employs you, but you can be unemployed. So what will you eat? It's an obvious fear. And with little kids, I think it's mainly about anxiety, because well, little kids can bring a lot of pressure, and if you didn't find ways to deal with that pressure, then you can become like a bomb.
Okay, I want to touch on that little kid topic maybe for a second, and before we go to Mihaela's answer. Anyone in the panel, I think it's a valid question, and I think many of the 90 participants we have already now are interested in this. Do you guys have any groundbreaking best practice that you would like to share? Some of your employees or your companies are doing on how to take care of little kids, right? So we have seen a number of opportunities that people have shared. Either of them had, you know, small issues. Is there any super solution from your end that you would like to share here? I think if you do it now, you will have a lot of followers, because that's a top 50 million question.
Is it a question for
anyone who knows the best solution? First come, first serves.
I'll go. There's no best
Please.
solution, but I just want to give 2 examples, just 2. Of course, that everybody I think is sharing on their internal chats or groups a lot of tips and tricks on how to deal with that. But we're not talking about that because sometimes there's too much noise around it. But 2 things that we're doing, and I applied them, and they're really cool because I also have 3 children, 2 of which are small. One was a daily art competition. So with my 7-year-old,
Art competition.
Daily art competition, okay, which is global. So of course you do a drawing based on a certain theme with your parents, and then you show it off, and then you get likes, and it's interactive, and people get some reward from it. Children. And the one which is more complex is that we have this initiative called A Robot for Every Person, which is the mission of this company. And we're now piloting a sort of a training session which goes for a certain period of time with the children of the employees worldwide. So that's something that has already started. It's open for children up to 14 years of age to build their own robot on certain topics, on certain things that they want to address. So that's something that's also in line. It's in line with what the company does, and it involves children, their families, and so on.
Art competition, nice.
Yeah.
Who else would like to? Please.
I have a tip too. It's not about doing something, but it's about an attitude. It's an attitude that people, especially people in corporations, usually have, that they have to be very good on what they do. They have to be the best even on what they do, so they can unconsciously move this into the parenting task. And in this field, this doesn't work. The more you try to be the best parent, the more you can feel pressed, and the children feel that pressure. So here it is better to be relaxed. Children need as possible as relaxed parent. It's better to go to the if there is a bridge between, if people usually perceive it as a bridge, between careless and doing well. So it's better to be a little bit on the careless side. I mean, even if you don't prepare the best meal, they can find things in the fridge and do it by themselves. If they are over 3 or 4, they can manage for a meal. It's not such a big deal to not do it perfectly. Or you take time for yourself. You say, please, now I need time, I need space for myself. I will stay in my room for half an hour. So please don't bother. I really need this time for myself. I need to charge my batteries, you can tell children, so they can understand this. Otherwise, I will become if I'm working with my batteries very low, I will become a bad mother. I will become a very bothering person. So it's very important to take some space and to chill, to take moments to chill down. If you can do it
what
together.
Would you suggest for those parents who have kids at the very young age that they don't understand what battery or charging means?
Well, if they are that small, then you don't have to explain to them, but you have to understand it yourself. So you have to, if possible, give this, make some shifts with the partner, and say, now I need some time to rest, or to meditate, or to just to take some fresh space, some mouths of air. Maybe you can't really go out, or but at least to stay in the window and take some air. But just give some time to your body to relax. And staying on the telephone or watching something on TV makes the mind think that you are relaxing. So it's a fuller. You don't really relax. You just block your senses for a while because you are hypnotized by the screen. But when you come back from there, you are at the same level of stress. You didn't relax. You really need to take some time with the aware in your body and just feel the body. That the pressure is coming down. You really need, people really need this kind of time, no matter.
So you're saying TV is absolutely fooling you. It's interesting because, to be honest, I will admit I have in the last 10 years probably developed a hobby that I am watching documentary series, typically about nature, if I feel I'm full. And to be honest, I feel quite relaxed after those.
Okay, so maybe the information relaxes you, but sometimes people stay on the Facebook and watch things which are not really relaxing, maybe an action movie, or you disconnect your mind from things, and you might feel a level of relaxing in your mind, in your brain. But the body doesn't really lose the tense when you watch TV. For this, you need some aware in your body. Well, if you can do both in the same time, that's great. So you watch the documentary while you are aware of what happens in your body. So it's the next level. But I suggest, especially with little kids, when the pressure is high, I suggest some time really for watching oneself and not watching the others, because when you watch something, TV or Facebook or whatever, your attention is still outside, and what brings real relaxation and awareness, it's attention on myself.
How about books, reading books? Is that also a trap, or is that turning off completely the mind?
Well, when you are reading a book, obviously the attention is still outside, but at least it lets your mind in contact with the body. I think the screen is kind of stealing your mind there inside. It's absorbing your mind. The book doesn't do that. You can still be in contact with yourself. But well, it's important to have this intention. I intend to be in contact with myself. I intend not to lose myself. So once you have this intention, at least you are going on this path.
Okay. Ioana, is there anything that you would like to share as a best practice on children care? And I'm also seeing there's a question in the chat. Just may I ask, please, all of you guys, if you can ask the questions in the Q&A panel, not the chat. It's easier for me to just see. But the question is, what can you do when the child is too small and cannot understand this own break? That was, also pretty much what we kind of covered. But if Ioana, for example, you have anything to answer to this, or just generally on the tip for the kids topic?
I can share what happened in the teams I'm in. Yes, so first week of lockdown was madness, really, in terms of actually myself, my colleagues, they all shared they lost control in terms of kids still, well, they need to eat, they have school. If you have 2-3 kids at school, even if they are not little and they had online school, the house is very busy, yes, and you anyway keep your tight schedule of 8-hour calls, so it was madness. So the learning from next week was coming from 2 areas. One was planning, so everybody started to do more thorough planning at home. So there is an hour for lunch, there is a time for supporting kids with school, times in which I'm not in calls. So a proper integration of kids' agenda into your own agenda. We started to see requests of, I can't join meetings during this period. I actually want to flex and start later because I need to do homework with my kids. So we actually flexed the agenda to integrate kids' agenda. So better planning started to show up in the in the second week. And another reality, and this is not an advice or something, it's just a reality. We all understand that we should allow ourselves to be and accept the situation as it is. So there are meetings in which you hear dogs and kids and please stop this, please leave me alone. So it becomes a normal for the kids to interrupt too. So nobody's feeling embarrassed anymore. They start the conversation at work, they ask the kids to do something, and they continue. So in a way, we understood this is a reality and we don't need to pretend we are at office. Yeah.
Okay. Mihaela, we just stopped at you, and the topic was, who do we feel that they are the most endangered or more at risk group of people? I don't know if you would like to share your opinion on that. How do you see?
I see that it depends on the personality of the person and the level of consciousness that person has at this stage in life. I wouldn't see it as based on profession or age. It's basically what Vistiana said. It all depends how you are as a person, at what stage in life are you with, how do you cope with anxiety. I give you an example, my mother, you said about older people, that they don't have access to technology. She told me, for me, life is the same. Because I have my flowers, I have my garden, I have my Sudoku, I have the TV. So she doesn't sense any change. For my daughter that is 19, and this is, I think that for these people, for the young adults, it is difficult because they were on the wave of partying, clubbing, having the celebration of ending high school, and then suddenly, everything stopped. And what I see the benefit here is that they need to learn to get bored and to stay with themselves and to rely more on what they have, because at least my generation, the X generation, we are also called the helicopter parents. We are used to arrange everything for our kids. They have nannies, they have a tennis teacher, they learn tons of foreign languages, they play piano, they are all these supermen and super women, super kids. But we didn't teach them, because we don't know how to cope with their emotions. This is something we don't know as adults. And I think that now it's the time for parents and kids to, at this age, of course, we don't talk about kids at 1 year old or 3 years old. It's a completely different universe. But now actually we as adults learn how to cope with our emotions and how to rely on ourselves. And we have this opportunity to have a more strong bondage with our kids and them to learn how to cope with their emotions. Which is, I think, the most difficult, at least for me, the most difficult thing or trip to do. It's not about doing, it's about being. And in the corporate world, we talk about doing. Even with the kids, is that keep them busy, which is not the key.
I would like to pick up on this point. I think it's a really interesting point what you said. I have had numerous conversations before this whole thing in the past years that parenting becomes a competition. You want to be the best parent, and how you want to be a best parent is that you keep your kid as busy as a CEO would be. So you basically pack up the kid, like after school, football, after football, piano, after piano, at home, cooking together, after that, this and this and this. Weekends look like, for older generations, summer holidays. Like they are pegged as a tourist program. And kids or people in younger generation don't learn how to be bored, don't know what to do if they have a lot of time. And that's an interesting topic. It was always, going out before, and maybe now this fires back because people are, feeling bored. Obviously, there is a lockdown on the weekend. They don't know what suddenly they should do. 3 months ago, it was from Saturday morning to Sunday evening. You can't even take a breath because you're just full of programs. Right now, you don't have anything to do, and you don't know suddenly what to do. About generation, I know it's not black and white, and it's really difficult to put the problems by generation, but I would like to bring one topic up about Generation Z or the generation, let's say the youngest generation, which is working right now, let's say. So the people who are between the 18, 20 to 25, 26 years old. This generation typically on the labor market, as also at Hayes, we see them as a majority of candidates, for example, in shared service BPO segment. They are very comfortable, or they used to be very comfortable with, going for a job interview. And if they didn't like the hair color or the eye color of the hiring manager, they said, I don't want to work for this company. The meeting room was too small. The air conditioning was too cold, whatever reasons. Don't care, because tomorrow I have 4 other interviews and I will cherry pick the job that I want. What I have heard from a number of cases is this group has shown one of the highest level of anxiety during this COVID period, and suddenly they turned around and they started to worry about what's going to happen. Am I going to lose my job, and this kind of things. How do you see that in your own example? Maybe Andreea, if you can share your input on this.
Yeah, thank you. So clearly there will be some, this is an inflection point for how the scales are in terms of employees, employers, which category can now afford anymore to be very picky, like it used to happen with this very young generation. And I think it's actually a welcome type of situation for them, because I'm linking into what Vistiana said. It's good for their maturity to learn to deal with these kinds of things rather early than later. So I think that this is going to affect how the young people will start to look at employment in general and their dynamics with the employment world. So I think it's an inflection point there, and it's this takes me to that other kind of dilemma. Are we talking about generations here, or we're talking about stages of life? So probably it's going to help them get through this stage of life and come out of it more mature, while relativizing more than before, their position and their dealing with the outside world. So because before it was very much about the employer needs to take care of my needs, and this is something that we see in a lot of companies, including the one that I'm now in. There was this kind of transfer from me as a mature human being, as an adult, taking care of the needs that I have, to feel secure, to feel to feel accepted, to feel loved, to feel nudged, and so many things, which I could see, and with the help of the companies, being projected into the companies. So we were the ones attending to all of these needs, and not sure if doing a good thing by doing that. Now people are on their own. This category of people are on their own, and of course they have no tools to deal with taking care of themselves. So I'm just giving an example here. In our company, people used to have lots of things coming into the office. In terms of having fun, in terms of meals, all types of meals, beverages, everything, snacks. So of course that people now back home, they even have to attend to these things, simple things that are part of being an adult, and not necessarily happy about it. But I think it's a good stage to be in from this perspective.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Ioana, how is that in your opinion? Younger generation, how do you see them, how they are reacting?
At least statistically speaking, I have a team, a young team. Yeah, average age.
I bet. Yeah.
It's a young team, and this came with some pluses. Technologically speaking, they are so used to connect remote that here I don't see a major change. In terms of other adds-on of this period, like additional stress, uncertainties, they come to us and ask different type of questions, similar with what Andreea mentioned, but they receive the same type of answer. in terms of flexibility and freedom is coming with responsibility. Some decisions you need to take care of, productivity you need to take care of. I'm here to support you, I'm listening you. So we are continuing our approach of conversation with them in terms of freedom plus responsibility. Indeed, bigger volumes of questions these days, but we keep our same approach. I'm not able to report differences too many versus the daily work at office. So they adapted to remote. There is a general stress over people during this period, which is not age related.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What I've seen in my teams.
All right. Thank you very much. Then a question we have over here. It's for Andreea and Ioana about corporate questions about Molson and UiPath. Besides the work from home policy, what other changes were involved in Molson Coors and UiPath? I know that some employers cut salaries or moved to a 4 days week. Who would like to start this answer, if not too sensitive? Let's say Andreea, maybe.
Sure. It is a sensitive question, of course, but again, it's very important which industry you're in. So for our industry, which probably is not yet so affected, and probably if it will be less affected than others. Of course, that also the measures that you take, you want to be on the safe side, you want to ensure the business continuity, so every company is looking at that. No, we have not cut salaries, we have not cut bonuses, we have not done that because fortunately, financially, it's a very stable place. But what we did is that we looked at the opportunity to become more operational, effective, so to say. So we did cut some perks, for example, that we had, and which most of them were associated with coming to the office, but not only. So if you want, in a layman's terms, we cut off some of the fat that was there anyway, and it was probably a lot. But we did not affect people's benefits, so like health, like insurance, like salaries, bonuses, no.
Okay.
Still, I mean, it's important to see what the future will bring, because I was looking, I don't know if you saw, and I can share it afterwards if you want to share with the participants. The IMF latest report from April, which looked at each country and how it's going to be affected in terms of GDP and attrition and unemployment. And for Romania, it's going to go to, I have it here.
12%, I guess. Is it 12%?
Yes, it's they say 10.1% here, and the decrease in GDP is 5% for this year. So yeah, it's very interesting because this kind of unemployment is quite high, and definitely it's not going to stay stable even in these industries.
We shall speak about labor market shortly. Before that, if Ioana could you update us about what measures Molson Coors have taken for this question?
To respond on salaries, benefits, no change. So we continued to give our merit increase this year. We paid the bonuses, and we took no decision on compensation and benefits. It's business as usual till now. I mean, there is a request with all of us to be cost conscious. I mean, it would be unhealthy or not to be cost conscious. And during these days, there is a saying in our company: flip each coin 3 times and see if you really want to spend it. Yes. So this crisis functioned like a catalyst for real good conversation, like, do we really need this? Can we do it in a different way? So it forced us to find solutions. And you've seen jokes on the net that the best digitalization was the COVID, the catalyst was COVID crisis. It is the same with other conversations, also money related. I mean, we have on the table this attention, being cost conscious, and we look for solutions to do things differently. I have
if I understand correctly, what you're saying is that instead of just going on straight cost cutting, what you are doing is a bit more cost consciousness. So some of the reasons why you don't spend that money is not necessarily because you just simply had a direction, we cut X% of the cost. You don't do that. You just simply maybe evaluate much more thoroughly whether do we really need to spend that money.
Yes, so some of the costs just evaporated because they were linked with physical presence. I mean, what Andreea mentioned before. So this we don't even discuss. In terms of different type of investments, some were postponed, yeah? Like we buy now furniture for the new floor? Partially, yes, not all of it. So this type of conversations we have on the table. And of course, we have this job security question on the table from our employees. It was addressed in town hall, and our response was not in terms of certainties for a longer period of time, but it was in terms of commitments that we will keep the conversation with them really frequent, that we will be fair and open about status of the company, sales, impact in volumes, what is happening, and we will share with them decisions. So no other approach till now.
Mm-hmm. Going back on the labor market question or a labor market topic, I can also see some questions. I will put that on later, so we'll not be forgotten. Just staying with the labor market topic. Do you guys expect, and I will probably ask Mihaela on this because you're also engaged in recruitment services, Mihaela, do you guys expect that after this whole thing is over, or whether, it's also a question whether this is going to be just over or this is just going to be slowing down and slowly going back to normal. But let's say when people can move again, people can go to interviews again, people can go to office again, do you expect a big boom in the recruitment market? Then suddenly people, you know, just starting to be more active on the labor market, starting to change jobs, as also the demand for candidates is going to go up as companies are starting to reopen vacancies? Or what's your vision? How do you imagine labor market is going to look like after this is starting to disappear?
Okay, speaking about aims about the recruitment business, it was very weird for me when we have weekly the EMEA meeting with AIMS, with all the AIMS companies, the recruitment companies in the world. And there are so many different perspectives in each country, in the sense that it all depends on the government. We got all very frustrated when AIMS Germany told us after 2 weeks of lockdown that during a weekend, this guy, Rolf is his name, he received a check from the German government with a big amount of money to help his business. Last week, the guy from Denmark said, you know, each Danish person is receiving 3,000 euro monthly just to be safe financially. Now, of course, and we, all the other countries were like, oh God, I mean, not that we don't have any support, but we, Romania, if we talk about the Romanian market, we are dependent on the more evolved markets. Whatever Germany is doing, then if Germany is opening up factories like they did, then okay, we might have some business. if Austria is doing well, we might be okay-ish. But there is a common ground for all the businesses worldwide in recruitment. People do not feel like changing jobs these days. That was common when each country was reporting on what is happening in our markets. And we are talking because we are dealing with middle and top management positions. At this level, people don't feel so far like changing jobs. They prefer being safe. You know, I mean, it's like, okay, probably my company is not the best company, but I know, at least I know I am safe. I know what is going on. I know that devil, you know, I wouldn't change that for somebody else now. So it was surprising for me to see that candidates have this, and I'm talking about middle and top management position, they have this attitude of not now, and it makes sense. I mean, it's rather, let's sit and wait how the market will evolve.
Let me just add some addition, an interesting one. So what we are exploring, or what we are seeing at Hays, is that, people are looking for security. However, as people have typically now more opportunities as chances to attend job interviews, then we have seen a huge uplift in our, they call it internal interview. So internal interview meaning when the candidate has the interview with the Hays consultant, not the one when the candidate has the interview with the client actually.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously client interviews are decreasing because of obviously jobs are open jobs are decreasing, but we have seen a very big upswing in our internal interviews. So candidates have now time, they reach out to their consultants, they call them, they want to have an update, and during this period they basically, you know, have these discussions that when the market is ready, you are just a phone call away and you can just start changing jobs. So what we are seeing, and I'm not saying that's going to happen or that's not going to happen, what I'm possibly can imagine to happen is that when things go back to normal and suddenly people start to see that companies are opening jobs again, and there's going to be a big kind of buzz around this, and people may suddenly just move. I don't know how you guys see this.
What I recall the times when we went with all these companies that I have through the crisis of 2009. And it was, you know, like up to 2008, everybody was very spoiled. We made lots of money. Candidates were asking for huge salaries. I remember candidates asking for 10,000 euros net salary to be a trainer. I mean, it was outrageous. And then suddenly in 2009, everybody became very humble because the middle management layer was just vanishing. Entry-level people were somehow promoted to be kind of management, and all the expensive people were fired. And then was actually the beginning of the movement of how cool it is to be an entrepreneur. Up to 2009, it wasn't cool to be an entrepreneur. It was cool to be part of a corporation. And then in 2009, it all started to, different things were starting to be cool. Now, and then, you know, the market was like patient and people were more humble. And in the past years, they started again to have all kinds of requests, as Andreea said, projecting the parents on the company. The company needs to make me happy, my boss needs to care, and so on. And now I think, I don't know, obviously, it will be again a drop, coming back sort of a forced humbleness. And I don't know where it will lead, but definitely the working environment and the labor market will have nothing to do with what was before COVID, in my opinion. It will change, something will change. And I don't see a boom in the recruitment market. Probably it will be in 1 year or 1 year and a half. I don't know, but I don't see it very soon.
I have read an interesting article, I think in the past days, And the result of a survey that was published there was that 47 or something, somewhere between 40 to 50% of candidates are currently still actively looking for jobs, and there were more than 80% of hiring managers who were saying that they are absolutely comfortable in hiring people based on online interviews and onboarding them online. So this would show that actually from a people's point of view, if we take economy aside, if you just take candidates and people who make hiring decisions, they are all kind of up for it. It's just only that the market does not allow us because jobs are not being opened that much in this period. I can see some questions are coming up here. We will spare them for the Q&A session, but before we just go to them, I will have also wanted to ask about the topic that we have slightly touched before, which is about performance management of staff online or remotely. And I will probably ask Vistiana first before we go into the corporate answers. Vistiana, how do you see, if I say that checking in for someone and checking up on someone, would you kind of give any kind of input from a psychotherapist point of view on what are the top tips that we should pay attention to when we don't want to make sure that our employees feel completely micromanaged, but at the same time we also need to pay attention obviously for the business side?
Well, it's I will bring this from Mihaela and Andreea, that especially young employees and even older ones do project their parents on the job, on the managers, because in our generation people knew how to grow children physically and mentally, but they didn't have any clues about the emotional side. So people didn't have the chance to grow up emotionally. If we don't grow up ourselves in a conscious way and in a wanting way, we are still, a part of us is still in a child zone. We are still emotionally children. That's why we can't deal with our emotions. That's why we gather a lot of stress. This is also a side of the nature of the emotional maturity. So when it's not avoidable that people will see you as a parent when you check on them, then you have to be aware of this. I mean, no matter how attentive you are on doing this, it's not only about you. It's about what kind of parents they had. If they are still angry and unaware of their anger on their mother or father who checked on them, then they might be angry with you, even if you're doing your right job and you have to do it. So this is not something you can avoid, but perhaps it helps to speak about it openly and to encourage people to talk openly about what they feel. So sometimes maybe we can ask, how do you feel when I do this? Well, I think I have to do this in order to, and I think it's good for our relationship that I come to check, but I'm interested on how you feel when I do this. So I think in a healthy relationship, from a healthy relationship point of view, I think this might help. I don't know how applicable is from the corporation point of view. I mean, if you have enough time, or maybe you want to keep that mask of a manager, and you don't want to speak about the vulnerabilities of a human being. This is what you know better than me, because some things I can say from my point of view, and I think this, well, it helps to make authentic bonding with people. So this requires speaking up openly.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? What is more typical in terms of mistakes, or what can go wrong more? Is it too much checking up on people, or is it typically what we do wrong is that we tend to forget about them, and we don't maintain the contact with them as much as they should. Therefore, they will feel a bit outside of the company or isolated.
I think there aren't recipes about this. Relationships are like going on the ice. You make a step, you put a foot, and you wait a moment to see if it cracks. It's not something you can say how much. I speak about the amount on how much you can check, because I don't know, and nobody knows how much is too much and how little is too little. And it's not about the right recipe. It's about how that people feels. So if she was already filled up by mother's checking, and then you just take a look, which you might perceive as too little, but because there the reservoir is already full, then she might see it as too much. It's just a matter of points of view. You can't find the right quantity. It's only about checking on each other. How is this for you? How is this for me? And we show each other in an open way. How, and then negotiate perhaps about it. So my too little, let's bring in with your too much, let's make it up together. Otherwise, if we just try to figure out by ourselves how much will be the right quantity, I think we can never do it.
Okay, thank you. Andreea, you are managing a workforce, or you are HR director for workforce, which is typically IT dominated. So this, sometimes we say, spoiled population. They can do everything what they want. They are the most wanted. They are the most precious. And probably they are like Easter eggs, you know, very careful not to break them. How are you careful? Because I'm sure you are anyway very careful with your IT people in a normal basis, but how you are careful with them during remote COVID situation?
Aside from everything that I mentioned, we also do, of course, these surveys. We just had a recent one to ask them how they feel. But you know, it's interesting because IT people, especially those who work in development, they identify more with their deliverable and their very small team and their immediate manager than with the corporation and, you know, the other things around it, which can happen in the corporate roles, you know, or in other roles than the pure IT. So that's a good distinction that I've learned to deal with. So in most of the cases, if you give them the basics and a lot of freedom, they can organize themselves because they have these tools and systems that they work with. And if they have a good manager, which you can help grow and develop and educate, then I think that they are fine. They need to be left alone more than we think. The other kinds of people in the organization, you know, people in the corporate dimension, you know, the marketings, the finances, the HRs, all the other people, they identify more heavily with the organization and the brand, so to say, or the community. So that's a different type of approach, and for those you have to have it's a different target. So you have to involve them more, create the communities, get their opinion, get them to speak up and to get involved. So it's very different here. But you know, also related to what was discussed earlier, how do you make it so that people don't feel micromanaged these times? I think it's a lot around how you communicate it. And sometimes what I've noticed, if you put a system around it, you kind of depersonalize how you can be perceived as a manager, in the sense that, for example, in the IT world, since you asked, they work with Kanban boards. Yeah. So, for example, so that's kind of a visual way in which IT teams use to measure the progress against some objectives that they have as a team, and to visualize how everybody's progressing against the team objective or the individual objective. So that's something, you know, very neutral that you put in front of a team that they use. So there's not much commenting around, yeah, but you're checking on us. It's normal. It's part of that. The other way is to do it when you don't have these kinds of tools. You do 5x5s, and that's something that we taught the other managers in the company. So at the beginning of the meeting, as a manager, you just go with a kind of a system. You know, it's important that we see how we all reach the common objectives, and we see how great things we're doing together. And people adhere to that more easily than if you personally go to the one-to-one and say, so what have you been doing last week and how did you do it? We use the one-to-ones more to coach people and to get the pulse of how they feel, you know, the other things around it. So I found that it's better to keep this monitoring in a system and use the one-to-ones for coaching and, you know, relationship building and stuff like that.
That's interesting. Ioana, how is it in Molson? You guys have obviously processes that are very, very well defined, I assume. So the performance management, I would assume, is, I wouldn't say easy, but pretty much straightforward.
Yeah, so there is obviously a gift in the fact that we didn't invent operational excellence with the occasion of COVID. So we had processes in place and operating rhythm in place before, and this was very helpful these days. On the other hand, the overall situation has a sort of stress associated, and it was a good time to check on validity on our prior conversations in terms of clarity of roles, how good looks like in a team, and preferences in terms of communication and safety. Yes, so we all start from, well, we start from the assumption that we are different and there is no solution for each person in the team, so that we rely on methods. And these methods are paying attention, doing checking, allowing space for people to express how they feel, and also keep the discipline on operational excellence. So I can share on the operational excellence requirements, no big changes and no surprise for everybody. We look at results, we check, we ask them to report back on performance, volumes, accuracy, like we are doing all the time. We had an extra stretch on managers for mood check, safety check, in terms of they need to allow more time to stay connected with all the employees in this environment. We are
Sorry, what is this mood check? How does it work? Is it checking the actual mood of the person?
Yes. So.
And do you compare this on a periodic basis, on a week-to-week basis, or a month-to-month basis? But I'm asking this because I would be actually very much interested to hear how the result of these mood checks are changing. So when we introduced the lockdown or the work from home in the middle of March, was it going down and then starting to go up, or is it just completely decreasing, or going? If there's any trend?
We started with the panic and then we stabilized and celebrated the fact that we are able to work in peace. We had the first month closure in accounting without surprises, everything. And then we moved again into a bad vibe because of everybody, well, we had enough already, 1 month of lockdown. So we have visibility on their moods from what they are telling us. Now, when we talk about performance management, I'm talking more about operating rhythm and regular team meetings, in which if you are a manager and you don't pay enough attention in the check-in, you can miss the fact that one of your colleagues had a bad event in the family. And you joke and you keep going just because you don't read the face so good like before. Yeah, so this piece is more difficult because you can't read the mood so easily like in a face-to-face team meeting. Yeah, if a person is reporting the mood in a form on a daily basis, is talking with HR, you have some layers of the mood, but also you lose a lot from what you used to see in face-to-face. And here, yeah, extra attention on check-ins, one-to-ones and so on. I will pause now because I don't know if you still hear me. I think we lose exactly Sandor a little bit.
Sorry, I got kicked out from the meeting. I don't know what happened. I'm back. I think it's the internet. So did I miss anything?
No,
No, not
we
sure.
were just making jokes about you, but that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry for that. Where were you, Ioana, with your answer? Apologies.
So short version, short version, I was saying that operational excellence wise, people are used with processes and performance manager and reporting back. So they will not be upset to report and for a manager to really check anytime he wants on performance.
Okay.
But on mood and how somebody is feeling, this is an extra effort because face-to-face is not so easily to be replaced. And sometimes in larger teams or issues with connectivity, keeping teams meeting with video camera on is giving connectivity issues. So it's not easy on this human connect, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's important in performance management, no? So you are losing a big piece if you start to talk about numbers and you don't know that the person had an issue at home. So
Okay. So I think the take home, definitely one of the key take homes from both of your answers is that the personal touch and checking on the person in terms of how he's doing or she's doing, how he or she has been recently is critical, and numbers should not overwhelm this. Yeah. Can I also ask, maybe you guys have any data on this from the corporate side? I don't know if you are measuring your employee turnover or your attrition even on a monthly basis, but looking at the number of people leaving your organization, has this been any significant change in April or March compared to pre-COVID times?
So not in my case, I'll leave the room for others. So in our case, the attrition is hilariously low, so, and it stayed low. So no,
It used to be low and it's still low.
Yeah.
And it will be low.
Yes,
And it will be low.
congratulations. And that's very good. Okay, how is it at Molson?
it's entire year is lower than last years. Yeah, so it's not a March or April evolution. Entire year is lower.
So it's lower than last year. Okay. Mihaela, speaking about your clients or your network, how do you see that if attrition has been changing over the last 2 months since the lockdown has implemented?
You know, I mean, while you are in a lockdown, lots of problems disappear and new problems appear. So, you know, if you want to seek for a new job, you cannot. If you want to complain that the food was not good at lunch, it's up to you. You have to cook it. So I think that the question, if you ask me regarding attrition for this period, is not really relevant. I mean, people will try to do their best to have a salary. And I think that if up to now, slowly the power was more in the employees' hands, like, you know, complaining, wanting so many other things and so on. Now, slowly, the employer is taking the power back. And it is exactly what happened in 2009 in Romania. Yes.
That's an interesting one. I also believe that this shift of supply and demand in labor market is changing. My personal opinion is that it will only change for a very short period of time, and after, you know, it goes back at the beginning to the employer more, but this candidate-driven market is going to come back quite soon. That would be my guess. I don't know how about the others, but before that, I can see that we have half an hour left, and I have a few questions here. So I would like to go on those ones. And the first question, as Mihaela, you were already just speaking, can I address this question to you as well? And it's about trainings. So the question is the following: how are the annual training plans are affected? We have slightly touched this question. The question, the person who poses the question says, data gathered from TNA or performance appraisal, what is the percentage of trainings to be turned into online? What are the new managerial skills to focus as a result of COVID?
Now, obviously, nobody has the answer. I am just giving an opinion based on 6 weeks of lockdown. So we don't know is the very fair and straight answer what will happen. Probably, I would guess, based on our talks with Dale Carnegie worldwide, with all the partners Dale Carnegie, is that probably 40 to 50% will turn into online. If the lockdown will come back in autumn, October, November, like there are these scenarios that it will be a longer period of staying, freezing somehow, then most likely more trainings will go online. It will be more than 50%. Speaking about the new managerial skills, I would say empathy. I don't know if it's a skill or not, but practicing more of empathy and being more authentic. Like
I think it was not a skill before, but nowadays I think it became a skill. It's a needed skill. Yeah.
Yes, I was reading an article this week. Harvard Business Review was writing about how to be a trusted leader, and that trust is very important during these times, and that trust has a component of logic, but a big component of empathy. So this, I think, will be a new skill because we don't see each other. We have to be very clear in communicating what we want, what are our boundaries, why we do what we do, and what is the situation, and to communicate that we don't know what the future will look like. Because honestly, none of us know what will happen in any circumstance. Yeah, so
okay.
that's it.
And I think that's resonating with the next question. Actually, the question is exactly asking what you just said. We don't know, but I will try to crunch this for some time because obviously we don't know what will happen. So the question is, do you already have a plan for what will happen after? How will you go back to normal? What will change, etc. So yeah, I'm sure, and I appreciate no one knows this, but I would still, that's why we are here, at least to guess or at least to discuss. And I think each of us has a personal opinion, and then I would like to hear those. So do you have already a plan of what will happen after? That's the question for the corporate panel members, and how you will get back to normal. That's also a question to the corporate panel members. But in terms of, from another perspective, Vistiana, I would like to ask you, is that, do you think that just suddenly going back to normal mentally, is that healthy? Or is that healthy? And I'm not speaking about from the virologist or biologist point of view that, we just let people in the same room. Suddenly, of course, they will have a problem. But let's take the biologic apart and just mentally speaking. Until yesterday, I'm every day at home. And tomorrow they will tell me, I can do that. You saw what happened in China. Wuhan became out of the lockdown. Next day, I don't know how many thousand people, like tunas in the can, they were standing in the national park. How can an individual can mentally work out that for 2 months I was locked up and tomorrow I'm free to go?
Well, I don't. I don't speak from a medical point of view. I don't look at that at all. From a psychological point of view, many times people ask me, when am I going back to how I was? Because now I have some depression or panic attacks, or I have a difficult period and I want to go back. And we usually find out that back in the past was not really a place where you do want to return, because this crisis brings you something, brings you an opportunity to improve. So you want to go ahead, you don't want to go back. And no change will ever bring us to who we were. So we will obviously be different, and we have to look ahead. We don't have to look to our old normality, which of course is improvable. So why would we want that one back instead of wanting who we will be, looking at who will be as improved persons? So maybe we are more aware of ourselves. Maybe we value connections more than we did before. Maybe we are more empathic now to each other. And when we see each other, we are so willing to see really see the other persons, not just take it for granted as we might have done before. So I think it's we have to change this perspective. Instead of looking at going back to the normality, looking ahead to who we will be and how we will live our new lives, because it's definitely going to be new. It's never the same. And every time people are in depression or panic attacks or any anxiety, this brings something good. It's never for nothing. It's always bringing some mud out of to the surface of our being and giving us the opportunity to clean up. So as after this, we will be new persons and not going back.
That's very promising, because typically I'm hearing two kind of opinions. One is what you said is a positive one, that we will learn from this. We spend Easter without our parents, with our grandparents, and definitely next year we will visit them, even though maybe previously we have forgotten about them sometimes, or we will value more the human connections. That's a positive thinking. But there are many people who say that people don't really learn long term. I mean, like, we just simply, we will value this. Things go back to normal. We will be changed. We will be different. But after, business as usual or life as usual for 1 year, and we will just go back to the same mistakes what we have done. Well, please convince me and all the other skepticals why it's going to be different this time.
Well, I didn't say it will be going. It will be going to be different. I didn't promise that. I say it's worth looking at the future, at the going direction, and not at the old normality. And even if people are not changing, they are not visibly changing, I don't think they are going to be the same, because life is never the same. Tomorrow is never the same as today. So even if you remain growing old, you remain in the same patterns. You are growing stucker in the patterns, so you're not the same anyway. And I'm not trying to convince you that people are changing, but I'm seeing it as an opportunity, not as a promise. Of course, it's everyone's job to do this. So some people do grow up from a depression, or panic attacks are really a chance, are really a way to transform the being. If they are seen in this way, they are doing this job. If they are seen as an illness, as a thing that must be get rid of, and something bad, so people are going deeper in the mud. So it's much about how we see things. And of course, if we are stubborn to see the new changes, the changes of our lives as something bad that we have to get rid of, so we have pretty much the chance to remain undeveloped.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Ioana, what?
I'd like to pick it up a little bit because I liked this thing that you said, that people will see the opportunity And I remember also what Mihaela said, what happened and what were the opportunities were in the previous crisis or recession. And remember that at that time, the business world saw a lot of opportunities. So you have a lot of companies which were not there before because of this crisis. So you have WhatsApp, you have Dropbox, you have Slack, you have so many companies that appeared right then. And when the SARS pandemic was happening in China in 2003, Alibaba actually made the model what it is today for e-commerce. And now, going back to your question, I think that the businesses are picking up that it can be done differently, and they see another opportunity to do things differently. And I don't think that, at least in the software or in the IT companies, we will go back to the normal. We will go back to a different normal. And practically what it can mean for IT companies, maybe it can mean that people will never go back to the offices. This can mean this. Yeah. So.
Okay. About this point, before then I jump to Ioana, we don't have a property expert here at the panel, but maybe we can think about this. I have an interesting idea or an interesting assumption. Let's see how valid this is. Can you guys imagine that right now companies will be realizing that actually home office is not that bad, because so far it's been a loyalty program. You know, you get home office as a benefit, you get home office as a loyalty. And right now, home office will be reevaluated. Companies will realize that actually we can run our business from home. Of course, I'm not saying 100% home. I'm just saying that people taking 2-3 days per week from home may be an option. Maybe for some companies, yes, maybe for some companies not, depending on the nature of their business. But let's imagine everyone acknowledges that maybe 1 or 2 days a week could be a valuable option. Then companies will obviously analyze the property cost implication, and companies will say, you know what, I'm paying 16 euros per square meter for this fancy office, plus the fit out, plus the whatever, and then I may just, you know, not have this cost. I would rather be more cost conscious. I will spend that money on something else for my employees or whatever, and then actually even maybe in a 5 years time or 10 years time, or who knows, actually being and having a place in the office will be the privilege and not the chance to work from home, but actually people will be looking for a place to work, you know. So for example, companies will say, you are loyal to the company, you have been here with us for 5 years, you get a fair seat, and that's your constant place. Because I'm also hearing from companies who are working on a hot desking policy that people complain, you know, I go to the office and I don't have my steady place. I like it next to the window, but the guy came to the office 30 minutes earlier, so unfortunately I need to sit next to the toilet. You know, can you imagine that this becomes a reality, that actually companies will decrease their activity in the office and home office takes over much more? Ioana, what do you think about this?
Directly to the last question, or to the
yes,
previous one?
Yes, please.
So directly to the last question, I personally don't believe in total remote or massive remote work. I don't have studies. I'm talking from my own feeling. I seen people the need to gather around the fire to see each other, you know. So this is why I'm not very sure. Of course, from this experience, we'll get learnings that different things are possible in terms of remote working. And for sure, everybody will think of possibilities to increase, to move, to adjust. Total removal of office, I don't feel it personally. Yeah. In terms of recovery plans, you know, the first feeling I had in the first week of lockdown is like I'm in a sort of boot camp with my colleagues. You know, it is like different and extreme. And from a boot camp, you don't return the same person. Yes, so you return with stronger relationship with some broken relationship with some, with different skills, with different awareness. So I don't think we will return the same persons after this lockdown or boot camp, like I feel it, yes? So what everybody will do with these learnings, I still believe you can't generalize, because this experience, this bootcamp is different for people. Yeah. So I'm really curious to see how this will evolve, and we don't have formal plans for the company, but we have a commitment to pay attention and talk with stakeholders, with employees, and adjust in an agile way.
Okay, thank you. Mihaela, what do you think? How will the new normal will look like, or how is the recovery going to look like?
I don't know. I don't know what to say. Really, I don't know. I mean, besides what everybody is saying, I think that it will be something new that we cannot imagine. This is how I feel about it.
Okay. Let's leave it like this. That's fine. And because we have a number of questions, I'm just also conscious of the time. Someone says, in my opinion, the world is being disrupted, and so is the business of our lives. What's the boldest move your business and people strategy is preparing to take? Is there anyone who would like to answer that question? I guess it's a question from the corporate, for the corporate side.
I could answer, but not in a
Please.
very direct manner, because as you can imagine, whatever move happens at this point is just a scenario. So you're not mandated to speak about it. You know, however possible it means, but very much in the direction that you mentioned. It might be that companies like the one I am in right now might go to a certain extreme in this remote working, and that could look like something that you described, or it could look like just a place where you have meeting rooms and people come from time to time, teams to meet, to have, I don't know, some checkpoints together, with no specific offices, you know, the desks that people have. So that could be something that, you know, in general, IT companies would be looking at this point.
Mm-hmm. From my side, I would also answer this question. I've been hearing and listening to different perspectives. So one thing which is definitely into consideration is looking at a period which is a, let's say, post-lockdown but pre-vaccine period, right? So the period where we go back actually because, you know, certain economic reasons the economy cannot handle, or we manage to take control of the infections up to a certain level, but we still don't have a vaccine. That's a very interesting period because, let's say, fortunately, when the vaccine is there, it's going to be a vaccine for all this certain coronavirus, and then there's not going to be a mutated version of what. Let's not go into this. So let's imagine vaccine solves everything. Let's assume, but we still have a period for the next probably 1 year, depends on who thinks what, but there's going to be definitely a period which is a post-lockdown and pre-vaccine period where social distancing will be still necessary. However, companies will be going back. So there are some very interesting considerations on that. How can you ask your people to come back to the office? Because there will be some who will be afraid to come back to the office. As you probably all of you have seen that some of your employees were much more nervous already at the beginning of March. Some said, I don't want to come to the office. Some said, you know, don't bother, I'm fine. I'm not scared about this. So how can you bring them back to the office? What do you do with the ones who really want to come back, a lot of them, and can you accommodate them in your space? Because our offices, let's admit, are not designed for social distancing, right? So if you look at shared service centers, BPOs, or even the fanciest IT offices, there are typically a large number of people sitting on a 120, 140, 160 centimeter desk, which is absolutely not social distancing. Of course, social distancing is interesting how you take it, because maybe in Germany it's 2 meters from each other, maybe from Spain it's 1.5, and maybe in China it's 1 meter. So, you know, it's also an interesting one. And then how are we going to be able to bring back our people into the offices by respecting the social distancing? how a kitchen operation would look like. Can you go to the kitchen to put your food in the microwave if already 3 other people are there having a coffee? How do you redefine your desk layout in the office? How do property companies will deal with that? Are companies going to rent bigger spaces, or they will just say, we have a percentage of people coming to work on Monday, the other percentage comes on Tuesday, and we will work in shifts? I don't know if you guys have started to think about this kind of plans in your organizations. We at Hayes, we definitely, so we are already speaking, but I guess you also discuss about this. Would you share some of your initial thoughts or considerations? Andreea, maybe I can see you nodding.
I think this is no. I was just going to mute myself because I think this is contrary to what I was trying to say before. So definitely, if this is going to be a shift in the software companies, it will come along. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah. It will come along with a.
Not now. Sorry, you muted yourself. Yeah.
Sorry. So it will come along with a reduction in the property and the redesign of the space for different purposes. So not like now, when people go to their desk, their office, their specific room, you know.
Okay.
So if the industry is going to go there, definitely this, what you mentioned, will come as well.
I'm not going to go to this topic, but that brings another question. If everyone is reducing their office space, and what is going to happen with all these offices that has been constructed? If I just go out from the street, I can see Pipera is full of construction. What is going to happen to those places? I don't know, Ioana, what you think about this?
I will respond first to the question on post-lockdown pre-vaccine, asking people to come back to work. And our commitment in the first weeks of lockdown, and we will keep it, is that we will not force people. So we will ask them if they feel safe. So this question and employee safety will be on the table as a priority. But we have teams which want to come to work and employees which feel more comfortable in office work. So what we already started to do for some handovers, pickups of equipment and so on, we have a team functioning like a traffic light. Yes, so we are allowing, so just for everybody else to feel there is a control and a safety in control, we are asking them to say if they want to visit office. We are allowing permissions with reasons. We don't let them overlap when they pick up equipment. So going into a more increased scale or a partial release from lockdown, I see that we will have this type of intervention of traffic lights and planning with the teams. So they are not tomorrow all at work. I don't imagine this will happen from one day to the other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in terms of what is happening with the buildings, I come again to my initial feeling, because I don't have data and I don't have a magic wand to say what is happening, but my feeling is that people like offices, and even with few twists, we will continue to have business offices. This is my wish.
Yeah. My personal opinion is I would agree with the same. I think office is needed. We need to be there. I think everyone agrees with that. I think everyone agrees that complete remote is not working, and probably completely office-based, again, the world has shown it's not working, because if a pandemic comes or even something else, then we need to be prepared. We have a question. Looking at the number of questions, what I would suggest, and I will probably pop a last question, and then I will ask the ones who wrote the questions to send these questions to ABSL, and ABSL shall be able to connect you for these questions with the people that you ask for. So if you have questions which was not answered today, send an email to ABSL, please, and just mention in the question who you would like this question to address to and what is your question, and probably ABSL can pass this question to the people that you are asking for, and then you will probably get your answer in a short while. Yeah, so the last question for today, let me pick one interesting one. I mean, all of them are interesting. Let's see this. How the COVID will affect GDPR regulation and internal regulations regarding personal data gathering. I personally, honestly, not see right now the connection, but maybe you guys would see. Is anyone in the panel who would see that how will COVID affect GDPR regulation and internal regulations regarding personal data gathering?
From what I know by now, I don't see COVID should affect GDPR requirements for a company. They are there for a good reason. There is a certain context in which to contain this COVID spread, we are asked as a company to report in sort of a case or something. So a legal compliance in terms of monitoring this disease needs to be there. But other than this, I don't think COVID should allow intervention. Or
I think I see some possibility. Thinking about it, I didn't consider it before. But let's assume somebody's working from home, and they may work with their spouse or significant other or boyfriend, girlfriend. Yeah, or they can live with roommates or apartment, I don't know, cohabitation. So these people can break up, split at some point. It can happen that people have become in contact with conversations with confidential information, you know, while being in the same place, and then be able to divulge that information if, you know, something happens. That's a possibility.
Fair point. And I was just listening to you guys, what you were answering, and at the beginning I admit I didn't see the logic between the two, but I also had something else coming to my mind, that maybe the questionnaire was about that we need to report certain information, such as where did we travel, where did we go, and these things were not supposed to be shared with the employer previously. So when I went for holiday, I didn't need to tell my boss where I'm going. I just said I'm going on holiday. That's your business. And right now, maybe it will be different. And probably there is also a different angle that you have seen, that in some countries like Czech Republic, they are tracking your phone, where you are going, how they can keep the smart quarantine. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about this, but I guess you did. So maybe this is another GDPR element, which can be kind of confidential information, how to disclose that. Okay.
It's also very weird if you think of the new idea of taking the temperature of people in parks, on the street. So then how do they know that I am who I am? Okay, I have temperature, but how do they know my name? Because I will have a phone. So I mean, it's very weird, you know, then where is the GDPR coming into the picture?
Interesting one, a very interesting one, and probably interesting enough that, you know, to spend even a 2-hour panel only on this topic, and maybe that's something food for thought for ABSL or anyone who would like to cope with this further. Unfortunately, now our time is up. I would like to add and finish with one thought that I heard from someone that I really respect. It was nothing extra, but maybe just a last advice for everyone who participated in this panel. This person said that if you are coming out from this lockdown period in COVID without having acquired at least 3 new skills or learned 3 new things or picked up 3 new hobbies, then that's a dumb thing to do. So I would really advise everyone to use this time, because we were always complaining about we don't have time for this, we don't have time for that. I appreciate job is not getting easier, because probably all of us are working same hours or even more than previously. but we do have the weekends, and even at least until the mid of May, as I heard Mr. Johannes, the mid of May we are staying home. So use this time to pick up some new skills, upskill yourself. As Vistiana mentioned, mental cleanliness is important. Don't just clean the garden, clean your house, clean your mental, and stay healthy. Thank you very much for the audience and for the panel. Thank you for Mihaela, Andreea, Vistiana, and Ioana. Thanks for ABSL for co-hosting this event with Hayes. And I'm really looking forward to have the next HR talks in a room, but to be honest, I don't have high hopes. Let's see how it's going to be. Thank you very much again for the panel, and have a good day.